Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Today is going to be my last live stream journaling session, and I wanted to kind of do something fun to kind of wrap up. I'm going to continue doing online stuff, but I'm going to do a live online workshop, and you can find information on the Facebook page. And occasionally I think I'll pop on and do some live streaming with journaling and with other art as well. But today I wanted to get into something like I said, that's kind of fun and maybe a little bit different, and it's using string in the journal, not to stitch, not to glue in, but to use it with paint to create interesting textures. And some of you may have done this before, but I've got several ideas, several things that you can do with just normal string. So let's kind of talk about the string. So this is what I use. This is cotton warp thread, and I just buy it from like Dick Blick or any of those big places, and it's used in weaving. And it's for the warp thread that goes onto the loom, whether you're doing a cardboard loom or you're doing a big floor loom or whatever. But it's a nice strong string, and it's not super thin. It's not like thread, and it's not real thick like yarn. Yarn works. I've seen lots of people use different kind of string. You just want something that's absorbent. Okay, so something absorbent there that you can use. And I just realized I forgot to say, hey, pop into the comments, say hi, and tell me where you're from. So if you're tuning in, just, if you want to pop in there and say hi, that's always awesome to see who is joining in today. But anyway, so back to the string. It's, like I said, you just want to use something that is more absorbent. So if you've got something that's like really synthetic, maybe it won't work as well, but I use the cotton. So I want to go ahead and switch over so that you can see what I am, my work surface, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So I've got my journal, of course, got my string, and I've got my Inktense, my Derwent Inktense paints. You can use any kind of paint. I've used this with acrylic paint as long as it's really thin, but any kind of watercolor will work or anything like that. So some of these techniques are good to use as initial layers. That's why I kind of have it to this page. And some of them are good to use kind of whenever. So I already have a couple different colors started. So what I tend to do is have a different color or a different string for each color I want to use. So I've already used some blue. I've already used some red. And this is really messy. I don't know if you can see my hands, but they are, my fingertips are covered with paint. So this is a messy, drippy kind of thing. So if you're, depending on where you're working, you might not want to drip paint everywhere. But so anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the string. I don't want a super long piece of string, but I want one that's going to kind of wrap around. So if I stretch this out, you're not going to be able to see my hand. So just unwind or take off a couple feet, a few feet. If you want, if it's too thick, you can always cut it. It really doesn't matter. I usually just break it off, but go ahead and cut it right now. So I've got my string, I've got my book. I also have a paper towel just in case, because sometimes you need to wipe out your the palette trays. So if you're using a set of paint pans, the lids are palettes, so that's where you can mix paint. So I've wiped one of those out. But anyway, so I've got my string, I've got a paintbrush. What I like to do is I like to wet the string first. It just makes it a little bit easier to handle. So off to the side, you can't see it, I'm dipping it into my water cup and letting the water run off. And then what I want to do is to squeeze out. So let me pull this over here. So what I want to do is so I dip it in, get it wet, and then just squeeze out the water. I just need it damp. I don't need it soaking wet. Okay, and then I can lay it into my paint tray. And so I'm going to use green on this. So I have a phthalo green here that I can use. So I want to get a lot of that paint, and I'm just going to paint the string. And of course, the more paint I can get into it, the more intense the color is going to be. And I like using the string because it's very random, it's very unpredictable, and you can really create some interesting textures with it. But like I said, it is very, very messy. So once you get the string saturated with paint, then you want to be careful. This is when it's really messy because there's lots of wet paint there. So let me get my book ready. So I'm going to pick this up very carefully. And what I want to try to do, I could just use it as a big blob of string, but I want to try, and it's dripping all over the place, and so you might hold it over your book. I want to try to carefully kind of stretch the string out and pull it out so that I can drop it. So one of the easiest things to do is just to drop the string. Not going to do anything else to it. So I can pick it up again and I can drop it on this side. If I want, I can pick up the whole cluster of string and drop it. And this is just going to give me some kind of lines maybe, but lots of like swirling textures. And I can really kind of throw it down hard. And that's going to leave these little kind of trails. And it's just a really kind of cool texture doing it that way. Like I said, really messy though, but I think that's why it makes it kind of fun. Is that, you know, just kind of throwing paint down. Now eventually it does kind of dry up or the paint gets used up. So now I want to go ahead and replenish it so I can just put it back. I don't need to put it back in the water. The reason I did that at first was just to dampen the string, and it seems to soak up paint better when it's damp, but now that it's already damp with paint, just a matter of loading it back up. So yeah, so it's just a fun technique to try. It's just something fun to do, and you know, just need some string and some watercolor paint. Okay, so I could just kind of drop it, and that's a technique, and it gives me this really random texture. And that's just going to kind of sit there, and as I build up layers on top of it, it's going to just kind of create some interesting things going on. Another thing that I can do, let me find a space, is to, I'll do it here since I have some green, and maybe it will blend in. So I'm going to take it and pick it up, and then I'm going to drop it, but this time I'm going to drag it. And if it's kind of clustered up, you get these like interesting kind of drag marks. And I find that if I just kind of pull in one direction, it'll start to give me a line. So if I can kind of pull it, like this part of the string goes this way. So if I pull it this way, then it kind of does these like kind of sweeping marks. So if you can kind of drag it, I can use two hands and drag it around. And I can get all these like lines going on. So that's another thing where you can just drag it. And like I said, it's kind of getting dried out, so I can go back and load it back up with some paint. So that's another technique. And the nice thing about these two techniques is that it's very random. So I'm not even going to worry about like, oh, it's still wet. I'm going to go ahead and just turn the page. Okay. Another technique that I like to use is to use the string a little bit more, let's see, a little bit more intentionally, a little bit more consciously of what I'm doing. So maybe on this page, I think it kind of feels right. I'm going to use the red string, so I have red already, and take some more paint. I want to load, rinse out my brush. I want to load that up. And so, you know, did some dropping, did some dragging. Now what I'm going to do is to kind of do some stamping with the string. And I want to do it in a very specific way. And then pick it up. I really want to stretch this out. I want the string to be in kind of one long piece. And then I'm going to lay it down so that it wraps around the page, and even if it goes off, that's okay. So I'm being a lot more intentional with how I lay it down. I'm not just dropping it. And I could pick it up and there'll be some marks, but I want to sort of make that line. And if I take my fingernail, I find that my fingernail works best, and just go along and touch the string. One thing I was thinking about today, I've just always done it this way. Another way of doing it would be to like lay a piece of paper over top of it and press it down. The only thing that I'm thinking about with that is then that other paper gets some paint on it too, which might be kind of cool. But then it kind of, I guess it would soak up the paint doubly quick. So that's another thing you might try, is lay a piece of paper over it, and then you can kind of be a little bit more aggressive. You don't have to, I'm being really gentle so that I'm not moving the string around. And then what I can do is slowly pick it up, and then I have a line of paint. And then there's probably enough that I can do it again. And just kind of lay it in a different direction. I really like using maps and mapping marks, so this is perfect for that, because it really gives me that feel of like roads, or if I used blue, it could give me that feel of like creeks and rivers, or as they say where I grew up, cricks. Going down to the creek, catch some crawdads. And then again, just kind of pick it up. So usually the second time it's looks like it's still pretty good, so I might be able to get a third time out of it. Let's go ahead and try it one more time. And then you can kind of create loop-de-loops and all kind of other stuff. It's just a matter of going back and just sort of pressing it down, stamping with it. Okay, and then pick that up. And so I could keep doing it on here. I feel like maybe do it a couple more times, but I'll come back and do that a little bit later. But it's just this like really kind of cool pattern stamp, just very random, but also very kind of road-like. So that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of keep building up. I can also do it where I can create, since it's a book and I can close my pages, I can create sort of symmetrical ideas, and I want to show that where I don't have so much. Let me see here. Yeah, I have, actually, you know what, let me do it on here, because I went earlier before the live stream, and I started using the string. I was dragging it, so let me go back. I'm going to go ahead and use that string again, use the blue, because I just had an idea. All right, so I want to do a symmetrical design with the string, and I'm going to do it here. And this is very similar to what I just did, the stamping one. So I notice a lot more viewers now that may have missed the very beginning. The string that I'm using, in case you're wondering, is cotton warp thread, and I get mine from Dick Blick, and it comes in a big roll. Actually, the original roll was about twice the size of this, and I've had it for years. It lasts forever, but any kind of string or yarn works. Okay, so I've got a lot of paint on there, and again, I just want to be careful. I want to stretch it out, pull it out so it's a nice long string, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on one side, because I'm going to close I could close the whole book, or I could close just a page. Come on. It's all kind of wrapped up. Okay, I am going to wipe off. I mean, fingers are really, really dirty. Hands are really dirty with this technique. So, yeah, I'm going to have that blue on me for the rest of the day. So I've got my string. If I close my page, And like I said, I could close the whole book, but with just one page, and this paper is pretty thick, so it's not going to bleed through. If you have a thinner paper, it might bleed through, but just kind of rub it. And so, as you can probably imagine, what's happening is the string is stamping on both sides of the both pages. And it's going to create a symmetrical, more of a symmetrical design. And the reason I wanted to do it on top of here was that I thought it would be really cool because I can get a darker line doing this. Now over here, it looks like this is just a receipt from a local nursery, and the paint bled through it in an interesting way. So it's all kind of fuzzy. That's really cool. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to use this same string, and I've probably squeezed out a whole lot of the paint, so I don't know if this is going to work really well. So I put it over here this time, and let me go ahead and push that back this way. Okay. Yeah, it seems like it may have, it looks like it, yeah, it did. Some of it was a little dry. It looked like it yeah, here, I could see it now. Yeah, so this is really dark because the paper got wet, soaked in. So this will kind of lighten up probably when it dries. But yeah, so I have this symmetrical design happening. Okay, so that one's kind of fun. Now the next one I'm going to show, it's symmetrical too, but I think a lot of people really like this, and it might be something that you've seen before or something similar online, because I know every once in a while I see a video go around and I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. So I'm going to go toward the back where I actually have some pages that are I haven't started yet. So they don't really have anything, so I'm kind of in the very back. This time I want another piece of string because I think I want to use some pink. All right, so just break that. All right, so again, I want to wet the string. I'm doing that off camera, sorry. And then squeeze out all the extra water, lay it down on my palette, and then use the pink. This is I think they call it fuchsia, magenta kind of color. Okay. Alright, so then I'm going to pick this up, and I always try to find the end of the string, which is sometimes kind of hard, but then I want to pull this and straighten it out, and I'm trying to hold it over the paint because it's kind of messy. Alright, and then you got to be careful. It looks like it's going to tie itself into a knot. Nope. Okay, so when I do this, it's very similar to what I've done. So like that last thing, I'm going to lay it down, maybe let it loop around. And it's okay if it goes off. Actually, what I'm doing is I like to have it stick out. So the ends of the string are sticking out. Okay. And what I want to do is I'm going to close my entire book on top of that. Okay. So it's doing that stamping thing. But then what I want to do down here is now I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on the book because then I won't be able to pull. I'm going to start to pull the string, and actually if I kind of wiggle it around, I can get some different things. Sometimes what I like to do is I had it sticking out of the top. Maybe it's not, there it is. And then I can pull it maybe over to the side, but just kind of pull it. Okay, and it kind of wrings out all the paint. And then when I open it, so it's a mix of that that symmetrical part and that dragging. So it creates this symmetrical design, but because I was pulling it, it really just creates these drag marks that are really interesting. Okay. Now what's really cool, this is pretty dry, because when the pages are closed and you're pulling the string out, it just sort of doesn't leave any big puddles of paint. So that's already pretty dry. So let me go ahead, I'm going to turn to another color. I got this blue. Let's go ahead and do some blue. And so being able to layer, and this is why I wanted to do it here, is that this is a really easy way of creating kind of a layered effect. Okay. So then what I want to do is very carefully, again, I want to straighten the string out, pull it so that it's not knotted or tangled up. And then I want to do it differently this time, so maybe try to get it in the middle here. Let's see, let's have that come out that way, come out. Maybe this is going to go up this way. Okay. And then again, I'm going to close the book. Find the end of the string, start to wiggle it back and forth as I pull it. Come up here to the top. I know it's sticking in here somewhere. There it is. Maybe wiggle it back and forth. Maybe start to pull it out the side. Maybe start to pull that one and pull it totally out. What I like about this is that you have no idea what it's going to look like. And it kind of has that like surprise moment when you turn and you see it and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. So anyway, that one had a lot of paint in it, so it looked like there's not as many of those drag marks, but it really creates this interesting design. And I've done this before where I've taken just two blank pieces of paper and stuck them together, so that way you could have two separate pieces. But this is really interesting in the book. So yeah, so just kind of pooling, and so there's just really just some fun things that you can do with strings. So yeah, so I can kind of do this pooling of the string to get this symmetrical design. I can close pages to get a symmetrical design and of just lines. I can simply drop the string all over the pages. I can drag the string, and then I can stamp with the string. So I just really wanted to show you something quick, something fun for my last kind of online, my live streaming. Let me go ahead and switch back. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of do something real quick and kind of show you a couple different ideas, and just kind of looking at the comments now to see if anybody had any questions. So if you've got comments or questions, pop into the comments, jot them down. I see somebody from Maryland, somebody from Chicago. Let's see, there's somebody from Idaho. So let's see, Renee is asking or saying that, yeah, you could maybe use a brayer with the string. So if you're not familiar with a brayer, it's basically like a rubber roller. A lot of people use it for printmaking, but also with a lot of paint. You can kind of roll out paint and do some interesting things. So yeah, you could probably roll it out. Another thing I've seen people do is take string and wrap it around like a paper towel tube, and then paint it and roll it. So there's all kind of different things that you could do with the string. I just find that it's fun to like challenge yourself to do something different with it, and to apply paint in a different kind of way. So yeah, so that's kind of it for the techniques. There are a lot of other things that I could kind of go into. This is the 16th live stream that I've done over the last month. Like I was saying before, I'm kind of moving into something else, focusing my energy on an actual online workshop that does not necessarily have to be in the visual journal, and it's all about, I'm calling it Breakout Voice. And so if you haven't seen the Facebook posts about it, I would love for people to join in. And the thing is that I'm feeling in a rut here lately, so I'm looking to kind of push myself out, and I just figured like, hey, I'll ask other people if they want to join in. So you can check that out. It's on Facebook. I have it on my website. And that's going to start in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from now, it's going to be at 1 p.m. on Wednesday afternoons, Eastern Daylight Time. So I know for some people that kind of conflicts with work and all that. But the nice thing is that we're gonna do it by Zoom, and I will record the meetings. And so if you can't make it, you can still participate and see the different lessons. But that's going to be a private Zoom type thing. It's not going to happen here on Facebook. So if you're interested in trying some new things that I haven't shared before, things that I didn't really focus on, this was just all kind of journaling stuff. So anyway, I hope you really enjoyed the series. Like I said, there's 16 videos total. Actually, there's 17 videos because one of the videos stopped in the middle and I had to restart the live stream. But you can find them on the Facebook page. So the what you're watching, the Eric Scott Art Studio page, or you can go to YouTube. I've uploaded them all, and I'll upload this one in a little bit, and you can find them there. So the whole bunch of, like, basically just I shared my secrets about journaling, and I really hope that you have enjoyed it. So definitely go check them out if you haven't seen them all. There's a whole bunch of them over there. And then the last thing I would just say is that, if you've enjoyed the live stream, if you've gotten a lot out of them, and you're like, hey, I want to kind of help Eric out, over on my website, and I'll put a link in the comments after the video's done, you can go over, and I have this set up as an online class, and it's basically pay what you want, everything from $5 to I think up to like $100. So if you've been following along and you feel like it's been really valuable, and you are able, if you're been hit hard by what's been going on and you're like, hey, I can't afford it, hey, that's fine. I completely understand that. So but if you really enjoyed it and got something out of it and you want to kind of send me some support, awesome, greatly appreciate it. So anyway, I really appreciate everybody that's tuned in. I've been really blown away by the support and the response to this. And like I said, I'm not completely abandoning live streaming, but I really, I'll be back occasionally. But like I said, I'm going to focus more on a live online workshop. So I really appreciate it. So again, if you have questions, comments, put them in the comments, and I'll try to respond to them. And share, if you've gotten something out of this, share it with people, let people know. And I appreciate all the support and the views, and hope you guys got something out of it. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. So as always, happy creating.